Hi, everyone. My name is Patty Kim, and I'm the librarian and coordinator for Algonquin College's Pembroke Campus Library. I have the privilege of facilitating our campus book club as well. Our Pembroke Waterfront Campus Book Club is honored to be a part of the Ottawa Valley Reads competition. We wish all of our fellow book champions the best of luck, as these are all truly wonderful books you should definitely read. The book we are thrilled to champion is Son of Elsewhere, a memoir in pieces by Elamin Abdelmahmoud. It will inspire you to reflect on your own personal identity as it relates to Elamin's hilarious and poignant snapshots from his formative years. The short chapters touch on leaving Khartoum, Sudan as a preteen and figuring out new labels of being an immigrant and also being Black in Canada. It looks at Highway 401 as a metaphor for the vastness of possibility. The author reflects on fully embracing the world of wrestling fan fiction, whereby they wrote elaborate stories of both famous and fictitious wrestlers in a highly competitive E-Fed world. Peppered throughout is hard crushing on girls as an awkward but endearing teen. Related to those experiences is a whole chapter that discusses the then popular TV teen drama, The OC. The character Ryan was an outsider, the character Seth was the cool nerd, and our author Elamin knew that these depictions in pop culture could and did carry over to his own sense of transformation over the years. The book also discusses positive Muslim representation in professional soccer in tandem with post-9/11 Islamophobia. His teenage nu metal years created a common denominator amongst new friends of different backgrounds. The only stipulation to being allowed to go to a concert for your favorite metal band was that you had to bring your mom with you. The book is a love letter to those formative years, to adolescence, to Sudan, to the immigrant experience in Canada, to his family, and to being okay with that push and pull of different cultures that ultimately inform a whole person. Son of Elsewhere is an incredibly insightful read that gives all of us permission to accept where you came from, the situation you find yourself in right now, and where you may be going. We hope you will enjoy it too.
The author, who's a well-known writer and broadcaster, moved to Kingston, Ontario from Sudan when he was 12 years old. And the book is a collection of moving, funny, and insightful essays on his experiences with finding one's place, of growing up, of belonging. We think that everyone will be able to relate to this book, no matter our backgrounds and experiences. He talks about home, language, identity, Blackness, family, flirting, pop culture, faith, and connection. In an interview, when asked what he hopes his readers will take away from the book, the author said, "I think sometimes we think about some of these identities as really, really solid. Ideas like Blackness, like immigrant, ideas like Muslim. And maybe one of the things that I'm trying to advance with this book is to maybe complicate how solid we think those ideas are." The book is a great choice for the Lanark and Renfrew Local Immigration Partnership Culture Connect event, Ottawa Valley Reads, because it teaches us a bit about the history and culture of a region that might be unfamiliar to some of us, as well as exploring the challenges of immigrants and their families. It's also a powerful reminder that we are unique, but the same, and that connection is what drives us.
And the author takes us through his journey of self-discovery through a lot of relatable humor and heartfelt reflection, and how it is to be a teenager and go through all the angst of teenage life, just like the rest of us. Yet here he is trying to learn how to be Canadian, learning English, keeping up with his own culture, but yet trying to find his own way and still fit in. His story was just compelling and genuine and so heartfelt. And I listened to it through Audible books, and the actual narrator was the author of the book. And he would just paint a picture of places that I knew. He moved to Kingston, and with moving to Kingston, he would talk about the 401, different areas in Kingston. Like, oh, I remember that. And then he throws in a lot of pop culture, and it's hard to remember, at times, here he is, an immigrant, and he had to learn things as fast as he can to make it through school, and just trying to explore his own self, but wanting to be like his peers. It's basically a book about learning how to be Canadian, becoming an adult, and trying to figure out your own personal person, I guess, right? Which we all need to figure out. And here he had to do this as being an immigrant and learn Canadian ways.
Hello, everyone. I am excited to share with you a little bit of the work of Son of Elsewhere. I specifically picked some passages that talk about the experience of Elamin coming into Kingston for the first time here in Ontario, and his first experiences at a post-secondary institution, which I think give us a lot to reflect on in our local community as well, in relation to a smaller population area and coming into post-secondary for the first time. Starting on page 6 in the physical copy. The population of Kingston, Ontario is estimated to be about 85% white, which is another way of saying like white. Kingston is so white. Way too many people say things like my Black friend. Kingston is so white, it has a town crier who is not only one of the most recognizable faces, he also won a title at the World Championship of Town Criers. Lots of Kingstonians know this fact, and they will tell it to you at parties. All of this to say, Kingston is not the easiest place to settle as a new immigrant. It's not exactly a gentle introduction to a new land. It is for good reason that most new immigrants to Canada find themselves in a major metropolis, a Toronto or a Montreal or a Vancouver, or if you must, an Edmonton. The idea is when you have more people who look like you, it's easier to recognize how a place can become home. By contrast, in Kingston, the whiteness was overwhelming. Skipping ahead to page 7. The Sudanese kids, welcoming as they were, tried their best to swish the Arabic words in their mouths. Their parents had told them to take it easy on me, so they collectively pooled all the words they knew and brought them to me as an offering. But I could tell that even though their parents had spoken Arabic to them their whole lives, and their homes were decorated with heirlooms of Sudan, they wore their Sudanese identity like a sweater that didn't quite fit. They identified with something else. That something else, as it turned out, was Blackness. Skipping ahead to page 14. Before moving to Canada, he says, I rarely thought about my skin color. I just didn't have to. I knew that my complexion came from the mixing of Arabs and Africans and that had dominated most of Sudan's history, and I knew that my family had social standing. The skin colors I did think about were those of Southern Sudanese people in Khartoum. They were Black. Their skin several shades darker than mine. They spoke Arabic with hesitation, and they were clearly not like us. So when grappling with the notion of being Black in Canada, this was my only reference point. That's Black, I thought to myself. And then in experiencing Queen's University for the first time, he met a person named Chantal, who was very confident and outspoken in relation to racism and issues of Black culture. Moreover, Chantal was surer than me that I was part of an us. Her confidence was infectious. She seemed certain that there would be room in the us, even with my conflicts and questions about Blackness. She was so sure that it punctured through my unwillingness to think about what I was taking in. For the first time, I looked around and saw 1 million iterations of Blackness, as real as I was, staring back at me. Nerdy Black people and jock-type Black people, and intellectual Black people, and theater geek Black people, and business school Black people, and law school Black people, and conservative Black people. Black people who came from cities and villages, from other ends of the country, and from other continents. All the possibilities I associated with whiteness stretched to encompass Black bodies all at once, bodies that included mine. Its place now obvious in a gorgeous mosaic of Blackness. Through Chantal and through a conversation about race so loud I couldn't tune it out, I learned that you can create a world so white you cannot even see how white you've made it. Elamin also explains in this chapter about their experience at Queen's and how it was one of the first times they had seen other people of their color, as well as many other races, and seen that in Canada compared to the white suburb that they first spent time in Kingston, and how it was a huge comfort when they first got to campus, but also eventually an understanding that there was still a lot of inherent racism in the institution. I think that this was a really eye-opening experience for me to listen to, because when we think about international students coming over or those who are newcomers to our community, we don't realize how jarring the racism may be when they don't even understand themselves as someone of color from another community in our new community, how jarring that must be. So it's just another layer of our understanding in that experience of how where you come from truly shapes who you see yourself as, and how much that can be changed and molded by the community that you live in. It's also a really important reminder that in all ways of understanding the other people around us, we all still have a long journey in acceptance and welcoming those around us, and to remind ourselves that our smaller communities certainly can be incredibly welcoming to those coming from all different countries, but just to remind ourselves that it may take longer for that sense of home to feel comfortable, and there's many, many layers to that feeling of home. Overall, I really enjoyed the book, and I hope you can see through these passages that Elamin writes with confidence, but also with a comfortable and easy to manage language that draws you in and gives you a good smile here and there throughout. I hope you also try out the book, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.